Hi.
Hello.
We are here and we're so excited about the topic today because we've had kind of an incredible morning.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes.
So power of community is what we're here to talk about, and we want to tell you about our morning and then give you some really practical thoughts about how you can begin to, if you don't already have a community or if you want to plug in further to a community, how are you going to do that? Where do you find them? Where do you find your people? All those things. Cool.
Yeah. Love it. Let's do it.
So this morning,
yes. Explain what, power of women, but explain what that is, because I think you've been really a part of this from the beginning.
yeah, well, I have been talking with Hannah Kitt and Kim Winters. Had this incredible idea to put together local top women. It started off as real estate agents, but there's lots of different business owners in the room, and just appreciating women and then also creating a space and a community for them to help elevate each other as women. So, and there's always incredible speakers. I've had the privilege of being the speaker on the first one and then have been sponsoring it since, which has just been so fun. And I don't know about you, but I just walk away from that event feeling like super pep in my step. Really excited and motivated and loving everyone. I'm like, I just love every person in the room.
I know. It feels a little like, I think, how church feels for some people in a way. You walk in, there's a speaker who's incredible, you're inspired, you're connecting with all these other incredible women, and then you walk away feeling like, okay, I am ready. I'm ready to do some big things. So I love that community.
Yeah, and I think the speaker, her name is Paige. We'll put her information in the notes, but she was so incredible and just really personable, but gave us some really practical support around how do we manage a lot of things at once. How do we take small bites of things rather than completely overwhelm ourselves? So not only are we connecting with community, but we're also learning together about topics that are really important, which I think is really important in building your community and putting yourself in rooms with people that are talking about some of the same things that you want to talk about.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that community is out there for all of us. It doesn't matter what you're involved in, what you're doing. There's community out there there's such specific communities sometimes that people tell me about, and I'm like, wow, that's, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think if you're like, okay, I don't live in Asheville, I'm not a part of this particular event. One thing, what do I do? How do I find my people? And I think number one, I'm going to go to, some of you know this about me, but I tend to be a default knower, right? So if somebody asks me to do things, my default is, well, no, I'm not really going to do that. Both personally and professionally. I am...
That's true.
Pretty introverted, though I'm loud, so it's confusing to people. My brain kind of thinks critically and overanalyzes at times, and so I can definitely be the person that when I see something or I'm invited to something, my default could be no.
Yep.
And if that is you, if you feel nervous about being in a room of powerful people, but people who, I always like to say I like to be the least impressive person in the room. And yet that is a little scary and a little intimidating. Sure. Sometimes to show up in those rooms. And I've had to really override my no response and say yes to those things. Yeah. So if somebody asks me to a dinner and I maybe only know one person, my initial instinct is like, oh no, not going to do that. I'm going to go sit in my window seat by myself. There's going to be no risk here. Right? But I think that this is the opportunity. If you're serious about finding a community, I think those are the moments you've got to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely learned that too. To push yourself to say yes sometimes. Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be all the time, right? Because we have the opposite issue there when you kind of overcommit.
Well, that's the people pleasing side.
That's right.
That's the yesers.
That's it. And I can vacillate into that. certainly have dabbled into that many times in my life. I think now I tend to it was like I was there, and so I was like, well, I don't want to be there, so I'm going to go all the way.
That's what we tend to do when we're making changes, right? Is we do this hard pivot, or I call it the pendulum shift. Right?
Yes,
it swings all the way the other way.
You got it. You got it. So that's one way. I think start saying yes to things that you're already being invited to, right?
Yes.
And you may have to let people know. I say no so often. That sometimes I have to say to people, I'm going to stop saying no.
Because they assume you're going to say no and they won't ask.
Yeah. You know, I'm listening to on Audible, this is an older book, but The Year of Yes with Shonda Rhimes. And she did this whole year. She's a knower, right? Like, just like, no. She doesn't want to, she's stage fright. She doesn't want to be on, it's so funny because she writes these incredible shows or produces whatever. And yet she does not want to speak, to be on TV shows, to be on Jimmy Kimmel, right? So she kind of talks about how she did this Year of Yes because she needed to push herself. And I just thought it was so interesting. And I've been really taking that to heart of like, okay, what are the things I'm saying no to? How am I missing my people? Missing opportunities to really connect at a high level with people because my default is no. So I thought that was powerful.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, I haven't read that book, but when you say The Power of Yes, I get like a a reaction to that. And so I was sitting here thinking about that, right? Like, for some people, I mean, for me, pushing myself to say yes to things that bring me out of my introversion and into extroversion and connecting is a good thing. But then some, like we were saying, some people have the opposite issue where they say yes to so much that they feel overwhelmed and burned out by it. So, you know, just paying attention to which side you tend to fall on,
You got it.
and in which areas, right? So you may be a knower in certain areas, but then you're a yeser in other areas.
I love that. Yeah, and I think because if you say yes to everything, you can't really be present at any of it.
Yes, that's right.
And so really, then you kind of walk away not feeling as fulfilled, and because you're feeling frantic about the next thing that you've committed to.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point, that you've got to figure out who you are and then act accordingly, right?
Right.
So I think that's one way. That's sort of the in-person way. But I think there's other ways. We were talking about online. You know, there's lots of communities. There's Facebook communities. There are people. There is a Facebook community for everything.
Yes.
I mean, there's millions of them for cats.
Right?
I mean, it's unbelievable to me. Like, so many. And so whatever you're interested in, go and find your people that are also interested in that thing. Do you remember? I remember going to college, and in high school, I kind of always felt like I was a weirdo. Because I kind of was. I was just, I was always pushing like the boundaries of like what was cool and what was standard or conventional or whatever.
Right.
And I remember going to college and having this experience of like, oh, there are my people. Like, there's people in different like there were lots of different people, and so I didn't have to fit just one cool kid situation.
I had that experience too of going to college.
Because it was just a larger environment.
There's a larger group of people.
Right. Now, I then transferred to a much smaller school, and it was a little different. But the larger school that I went to, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, there's someone for everyone here. And not everybody has that experience, but I remember thinking that, and I think that's the same thing in these communities, is there are those people everywhere. And so figuring out who are your people and then seeking them out, sending them a private message and say, hey, I saw, you're interested in this thing. I'm also interested. Where are you hanging out? Like, how can we connect? That's been another thing that I see people do, and I'm amazed. They will reach out social media wise to somebody they've never met and begin this incredible relationship. And I just think that's a way for us to continue to find our people, even if they're not in our close proximity.
Yeah, and it feels, I think for people it can feel lower risk to do it online, at least initially, to reach out to people they don't know or join these communities online, right? Yep. Because it puts enough space there that it feels a little bit less risky, but the connection, I mean, this is the thing that I realize about being online. that took me a while to realize is the connection can still be profound. It
Mm-hmm.
can still be really deep and meaningful, even if it's from that kind of distance, even if it's just happening online. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing that I want to say as far as groups is if you can't find your group online or in person, create the group.
Yeah.
Find one other person that it might be interested in, even if they're not interested in like the exact same things as you, that might be interested in just seeing what happens if we get a group of people together, right? Like I see this all the time with especially entrepreneurs or executives, women, see particularly, and they come to me and they're like, I don't really have this group, these high level thinkers in my world yet. How do I figure that out? How do I find those groups? And I'm like, well, let's talk about how you create them.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's online in a Facebook community or in person, I hear it so often that I have to believe in whatever area you're in, there are other people, and certainly online, there are tons of people that are looking for that sense of community and looking for somebody to take that initiative and start it. So if that's something that is in your wheelhouse and that you're interested in doing, I think that's another way to really create community. And I mean, and this is what Hannah and Kim have done for this event, is like they saw a gap in our community, which was women business owners coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they filled that gap.
Right. That's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Find your people.
Find your people. DM us if you are wondering how to find your people or you're confused about that. We have always lots of ideas. So reach out.
Yeah, and our community has tons of people in it, and they're pretty awesome. So we'd love to talk to you about how to plug you in.
Yes. All right. Bye. Thanks
See
for
ya.
coming.